Just says greetings from Ghana. So we give it to Minister. So when she's coming home, she knows that. And we brought cocoa from Ghana, chocolate for my sister, and we have hand-woven. These are to support women enterprise. This is done by a young lady with beads. So it's a purse. Beautiful.
And Minister Wickle, we have a presentation to you as well. Professor.
Looking fabulous.
This is a bag of Marcus Garvey and the impact of Garvey on Kwame Nkrumah.
By starting the history at 1619, you have pained many of us. Because that may be the record in regard to United States. But before that, the records will show of the millions that were brought out of Africa, from Ghana, from the West Coast, to so many other countries, including Jamaica, Barbados, Brazil, Haiti, Cuba, and so on. So to start at 1619, and like you said, we must teach our children. So when the children hear that now, they would feel that those millions that died before 1619 is now being dishonored.
Right.
And also, ironically, some of the biggest murderers of black people, when you think of people like William Hawkins, his son John Hawkins, Francis Drake, and many others, they committed the worst atrocities against Africans even before the 1600s. So if you start at 1619, you have excluded all those murderers and their actions. I would really hope when you go back, you let them know that we in Jamaica are deeply hurt that you are starting from 1619 instead of probably from 1452 or 1450.
That's right.
When there is empirical evidence that our brothers and sisters were taken out.
Yeah.
Give thanks.
What I can never understand is why is it so difficult to get to Ghana, to get to West Africa from the Caribbean? There must be a reason why the powers that be prevented this return.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to find out if you are English, you have British passport, you still need a visa to go to Ghana.
Because we do 3 at a time, so it'll be easy. My brother, the first question, we have actually reiterated as of this morning. I was on one of your radio stations, IB, and I made that very clear that the history does not start from 1619. And I use my own village as an example. I come from a community 10 minutes from Kwame Nkrumah's birthplace, and the second Portuguese fort for the atrocities was built there in 1515. The first building was in Elmina in 1482. So the actual pillage and plummeting started in the 13th century. They can even trace it as far back as 4 BC in Mali. But it is because of the commemoration that the United Nations started in the year and the decade of celebrating us. And in the US, which is totally different from the Caribbean, Congress passed an act, H.R. 1242, commemorating the first documented African who arrived in Jamestown. That is why my president felt it's important that we come to Jamaica, the Caribbean, to separate it from what is happening in America, to resonate that the historical facts are not 1619. And this morning I did actually reiterate that on the radio, that we know that this has started before they even put the buildings and the edifices on our coast. So as for that part, it is our job, you and I, to reiterate and to pass on to generations that the story must be told and told accurately. So I'm with you on that. We're using a symbolic date to get something. We've not been told our part of the story. We've not had the opportunity to share with the millennials that we are not some little question mark. We are a generation and we have a history. So where you're coming from, I totally agree. And we're saying that in Ghana. Because there are records and there are buildings that support what you said. So please do not be pained. It is a journey we have started, and the actual narrative is all out there. We have documents supporting, we have buildings supporting that it started before 1619. We need to tell it all. And I did that at this radio station this morning with Shamara. I think her name is Shamara. So, sir, I am with you on that. We are not cutting that off. We know what happened in Barbados and Trinidad. We know all that. And we are here to let you and I tell our narrative from the Caribbean standpoint as well. So, the second is connectivity. It was purposeful. It was purposeful. But now we don't have any excuse. Our Minister for Aviation was here 2 months ago in Guyana. He visited Guyana, and they have signed the Air Service Agreement that I brought a copy. That's what made grants. Heritage Morgan mentioned that in the video. We are sharing that with Minister Bartlett, and we're looking for charter flights. We're looking for the businessmen and women amongst us to do the flight directly to Ghana and to other Caribbean nations. But there was no connection between us hitherto. So it was part of the agenda to keep us apart. We're here, but we had to go through Europe, to come through America, to get here. It's only 5 hours across the Atlantic. So it is an opportunity for those of us here on the island to say, well, I have a charter business, but you can't do it alone. We have to come together as a cooperative, as an organization, as a group, and we use this powerful tool to do the business. We don't have to wait for anyone to come do it for us. But even Ghana, Jamaica collaboration in that aviation sector is also a possibility. From the policy makers, we have done the air service agreement. Now it's up to private sector to take advantage. It could be a cruise, it could be a flight, and we can do it if we are put together amongst us. So now there is no barrier anymore. And sir, British passport, you need a visa. You need a visa to come to Ghana. I know it's not for you, but we don't allow British passport holders to come to Ghana visa free. It is not happening. Yes, sir. I have a young, yes.
Wondering that since there were many other slaves that died on, so there are actually 2 slaves. So the fact, and there are others, and there were other things that you should commemorate, especially the Zong massacre. I think you should do that. The Zong massacre. Because that one killed about, what I remember hearing from a few different sources, around 200 African slaves. Because of my sources are conflicted, but some of them are saying because of a struggle with water. So they threw them all. The things that they do that they threw them overboard to lessen the amount of water, and there's another one that they say that it was because of insurance, but they wanted to cash it. And then there's the other one where, and then the other question is that they also don't talk about Ghana much in schools when they talk about the culture, so I think they should also make an emphasis on that.
Thanks, Minister. What a great engagement for young people. I think you should just give a round. You didn't say your name though and your school. Come. What is your name and which school do you attend?
My name is Gabriel McDaniel and I am at Mona Preparatory School.
So very quickly, on the 22nd of December 1781, a slaver arrived in Black River, St. Elizabeth, Jamaica, one of our parishes, from actually Ghana. And on the journey, in order to allow the insurance policy to be claimed, they threw 132 live Africans overboard. It was a very long journey because they lost their way and then they turned back on, to find Jamaica. There's a modest monument in Black River to the victims of the Zong, but also sometimes when we have money, we go down there on the 22nd of December to have a ceremony to remember those who survived that journey, but to mourn not just 132, because others died from so-called natural causes on the journey. The issue is that brutality must not be forgotten. They shackled people and threw them overboard. Now one man climbed back and said, "We know why you're doing this. We know you have claimed that water is short, and we will do without, but do not throw anyone else." They started to throw people overboard from November. And they started with women and children. And then they continued that in batches. Jamaica remembers that story. That's why we have the monument. And that should be in your history books. So if it is not in your history books, we have to make amends for that. Historians have to insist, talk to CXC, talk to the schools, talk to those who do the curriculum, that we must ensure. And many of us are doing what we can. Certainly the National Council on Reparation is trying to ensure that people never forget that. But one more point, and I think my colleagues will back me up on this. If they call our ancestors property and cargo. So when the court case opened in the UK, one of the judges actually said, "What are we talking about that people were thrown overboard?" No, they're property, just like we're talking about horses and so on. And so the first case was dismissed. The second case, the first case ruled in favor of the insurance. The second case dismissed that. So the insurance never won. But the essential thing is to think about the fact that they were claiming that those thrown overboard were simply cargo. And they did that in order to claim insurance, because if they died from natural causes, they couldn't claim the insurance. But if they could prove that the ship was in jeopardy and they were, then that's why they insured for accidents. You know?
About this visa problem. I personally, from 1992, have been discussing this with the Ghana government. This is the year of return. We're being invited home. And yet we still need the okay to come home? I don't think that's right. We have to, in some way, if we are going home and we are supposed to be welcomed at home, it's not a matter of getting a visa when we land there. It's a matter of no visa at all. It can't be that we're going to get a visa, but when we land there, we want that word to be totally eliminated out of our travels to Ghana. The next thing that I want to bring up to you is Canafest 2005. At the Durbar, there were white drummers welcoming us home. Please, I am asking. I know that we were so perturbed and disturbed by that because it was a sense of insensitivity, let's put it this way. We take this, those of us who go to Ghana on these missions, we take it very seriously. So we were totally insulted. I asked the question in the board meeting because I was a board member. Why did that happen? And I was told because they live in Cape Coast. That's not acceptable. It's definitely not acceptable. There is something on social media circulating that Ghana Airways will be starting back in March 2019. Is that correct or is that just fake news? It's circulating on Facebook.
Thank you. It in fact tells me that our job is not in vain. If that generation is acutely aware of our history and yearns for it in curricula, it means that something is stirring in his soul. The Zong massacre, I am confessing today that it's something I just heard from the young man. And that is the very reason why we need to tell our stories. We have the opportunity to use mediums such as television, movies. If we can do these things, it will help. Because the new generation, they do now with the visuals. They do a lot with videos. And if it's in the video game, that the survivors, you can do the superhero stories with our surviving stories. It is an opportunity as well that we tell our stories so it's more palatable to his age group. And the second part of his question is an admonition to the curricula here. If he's asking for it, then it means the education board will need to do something. Back home, tying into your question, we are here because we've done it at home. We've always been the nation that has the Pan-African credentials, that opens its doors to sons and daughters of the diaspora. We are now stamping the authority on it that it is not just 2019 and beyond. It is just symbolic that we've chosen a year, but this year of return will not end December 2019. It is a year of return and beyond, because every country, but Ghana has always and will always be a welcoming nation to its sons and daughters. So on that end, homework is done. It is on this side that the consciousness must be solidified. Why should I come to Ghana? Who is going to welcome me? Are they always going to be with open arms? That's why we're reaching out here. But if you came to Ghana and there's testimony of those who have been, we don't have that issue of, oh, you don't belong here, who are you? No, Ghana is a welcoming nation, and it is a fact. But half of our people here do not know. Hence this journey. Hence this clarion call. So on that end, yes, there are minor challenges. Not every village or hamlet that is aware of year of return. It's always been a year of return for us back home. From the day our people left, we've always been welcoming and expecting a return. We're just symbolizing it with a ceremony and a commemoration. So I want that to be ingrained in our narrative, that you are always and will always be welcome. The underlying reason why we're here. And I was speaking to the authority that is mandated to ensure seamless travel. Policy-wise, I was explaining to my brother that just 2 weeks ago, and I have a copy that I'll give to my sister, the president himself stepped in and said everywhere he goes, the only request sons and daughters in the diaspora are asking is about visa, the seamlessness, and the issuance. But you have raised a very poignant question, and as our elder had requested as well, the Commonwealth nations in Africa do not require visa. Ghana is the first country to have an open visa policy for all 54 African countries. You can come into Ghana for 90 days visa free. So now we have other countries in the Commonwealth, but I'm sure since it's the Foreign Affairs mandate, when we go back, we are going to make a case that there are Commonwealth specific countries that should be part of the African no visa policy. The first step that this government, this president has achieved is virtually obliterating that you need an okay to travel. First, you have to go to an embassy, you have to pay your passport, and your vacation time will be over. Now we're saying just get on a plane and get to Accra, and there will be the visa processing there. But you have taken it a notch higher. We don't need to even be processed. We want to come. So I'm an emissary, and I have a boss. I want to assure you that as soon as we get back, that request will be made to His Excellency, that our people are saying, if you want us to come home, then we come home with no visa. And it's for Jamaica, specifically. So I will carry that message forward.
Thank you very much.
Sister.